Last week, the White House released the National Cybersecurity Strategy. And what I'd like to do today is take a few minutes and offer a 10-minute review of the contents of the strategy and how you might find it useful. Okay, as my UK friends always say at the beginning of a presentation, right, let's get started. This is intended to be a snapshot review of the National Cybersecurity Strategy, not intended to be an in-depth review or in-depth commentary, but just to help you get a sense of the complexion and the organization of this particular document. But let's talk a little bit about background. In the United States, there are different sectors identified for critical infrastructure, and if you think about it, across all of these, there's a very common element, and that is cyber. And as a result, that's really a good reason for a need to have a national cybersecurity strategy. The strategy itself was issued last week, was signed by President Biden, 40 pages long or so. Builds on the work of prior administrations. It replaces the 2018 National Cyber Strategy and also constitutes 5 pillars with 27 strategic objectives. And we're going to review those at a fairly high level. And here's the table of contents just to give you a sense. It's got an introduction and then the 5 pillars and then some implementation discussion. The background of this document is identified in 2 ways. The first way is emerging trends. So what's going on? If you think about it, our digital life is very, very rapidly changing, very exciting in many respects. I'm excited about it. There are deepening digital dependencies across everything we think about and do. If you think about the internet and telecommunications and cinema and entertainment, etc. Secondly, the software and the systems that are being used are growing more and more complex, which is unfortunately an opportunity for hackers and weaknesses. The global international interconnectivity is also an aspect to consider. Is that something happening in the United States, for instance, could very well be coming from Eastern Europe or Asia. And also something that happens in the United States could be reflected across the whole world. The example that was cited in this document was the NotPetya attack, which basically started in some shipping companies but has spread to many other sectors and around the world. The other aspect of the strategic environment is that the malicious actors are identified in this document as China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and, quote, other autocratic states with revisionist intent, end quote, and a criminal syndicate cyber operations. So if you think about the criminal syndicates, they're using cryptocurrency, they're using ransomware, they're doing all sorts of money moves that are money laundering in nature, etc. So there's another aspect of our malicious actor concern. Let's go ahead and get started with the different pillars. The first pillar is to defend critical infrastructure. That is one of the key reasons why this document was even established. There are 5 different strategic objectives. And I'm just going to do some summary here. I'm not going to read each one. Basically, strategic objective 1 is to establish the requirements. And strategic objective 2, which you'll also see later on, is to scale and improve the public-private collaboration, because we can't work on this separately. In fact, most of the critical infrastructure is owned by private entities. It's also intended to integrate federal cybersecurity centers so that we can be more effective and minimize confusion. Pillar 2 is disruption and dismantling threat actors. This is actually one of the more exciting aspects of this particular document. If you take a look at it, there's 5 objectives again. And the idea here is that we do recognize that we may have to hack back. And if we're going to do it, let's do it in an organized fashion. So strategic objective 1 is to integrate the federal disruption activities like NSA, DoD, DOE, etc. The second objective, which is a very good one, is to enhance public-private operational collaboration. So if you think about companies like Microsoft, they were extraordinarily important in the takedown of a Motet botnet and other entities that have either been botnets or ransomware. They're very, very critical. So as a result, let's enhance that operational collaboration rather than restrict it. Number 3 is increasing the speed and scale of intelligence sharing and victim identification. Again, this is very critical relative to the ability to move information. If someone's being hacked, it would be good to have an effective, efficient methodology to move that information. Strategic Objective 2.4 is also interesting. It was raised in a document using an example of how some of the attackers had been using the U.S. cloud-based infrastructure. As a result, in fact, the North Koreans have been known to do that. The abuse of this infrastructure needs to be recognized, and also we need to prevent it. So part of this strategic plan is to work on that. And then lastly, 2.5 is to counter cybercrime and defeat ransomware. Pillar 3, shape the market forces to drive security and resilience. This is interesting. There's a couple elements in here that have been very active in the news cycle over the weekend. In particular, Strategic Objective 3.1, 3.3, and 3.6. 3.1 is basically saying hold the stewards of our data accountable. If you're a company and you have personal data in your computer coffers, so to speak, and you have a breach, perhaps you need to be held accountable for that because of that data has been released for abuse later on by other miscreants. So that's something to consider. Strategic Objective 3.3 is shifting liability for insecure software products and services. For example, if you download a software and install it, what if you happen to have a hack that occurs because that software has problems with it? Well, should you be held accountable or should the software vendor be held accountable? That's part of this discussion in Objective 3.3. And in fact, Wired Magazine had an article over the weekend about that issue. And then 3.6 is exploring federal cyber insurance as a backstop. There was a lot of positive discussion on this, is that if the federal government were to offer that backstop, does that mean that more companies would come forward offering cyber insurance to different companies? Pillar 4 is investing in a resilient future. This is futuristic. Take a look at Strategic Objective 4.3, preparing for our post-quantum future for quantum computing. 4.4 has to do with clean energy, and 4.5 has to do with digital identities such as facial recognition and so forth. And then 4.6 is developing and strengthening our national cyber workforce. Pillar 5 is to forge international partnerships to pursue shared goals. We do recognize that the cyber environment is international in nature, and as a result, we need to have improvements in this space to make it more effective and improve collaboration and so forth. So there's 5 objectives here, and you can see it's for building coalitions, strengthening international partner capacity, expanding the U.S. ability to assist allies and partners, building coalitions to reinforce global norms of responsible state behavior. In other words, you as a country should not be helping your hackers or turning a blind eye on them when they're hacking other countries. And Strategic Objective 5 has to do with the global supply chains. So in the 10 minutes I'm trying to make this video, this is not an easy read. You just don't sit down with a cup of coffee and just page through it. It takes time. This is not a law. or regulation. This is basically the beginning of the discussions for such things, and legislation is still necessary for many of the actions. Thanks for taking time today to hear about the National Cybersecurity Strategy. And I just want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. If you have a chance, please go ahead and subscribe. And you can see the subscribe button down below. And also like. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to getting my next YouTube out, probably on a subject that you would find interesting. Take care. Bye-bye.